70%. That is the share of the working-age population in one country using artificial intelligence tools every day, not experimenting, not occasionally, every day. The United States is at around 30%. Germany is lower. France is lower. The United Kingdom is lower. The country at 70% has a population of 10 million people. It sits in the middle of the Arabian desert, and most people watching this video have never thought of it as a technology leader. The United Arab Emirates has the highest adoption of artificial intelligence on Earth, by a significant margin, and it did not get there by accident. While Silicon Valley was building the technology and Beijing was scaling it, one small country in the Gulf was doing something that neither of them had thought to do first. It built the head start. The story most people know about the UAE goes like this: oil money, skyscrapers, luxury tourism, a wealthy country that bought its way into relevance. That story is 20 years out of date. In October 2017, 5 full years before ChatGPT captured the world's attention, the UAE appointed the world's first Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence. His name is Omar Sultan Al Olama. He was 30 years old at the time. That same year, the UAE launched a national AI strategy covering 9 priority sectors. Not a policy paper. A funded, implemented strategy with specific targets and timelines. While other governments were still debating whether AI warranted dedicated policy attention, the UAE was already deploying AI in government services, in healthcare, in education, in transportation, in the day-to-day interactions between citizens and the state. By the time the rest of the world discovered artificial intelligence in late 2022, UAE residents had been living with it for 5 years. That is the head start. Not a technological advantage, a time advantage. And in a race where adoption drives advantage, 5 years of familiarity is worth more than any single breakthrough. This has happened before, not with AI, but the pattern is identical. In 1965, Singapore was a newly independent city-state, with no natural resources, no hinterland, and no obvious reason to succeed. Its founding Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew, made a decision that most economists at the time considered unrealistic. He would not compete on cheap labor like its neighbors. He would leapfrog entirely into high-value manufacturing and financial services. Singapore invested in infrastructure before the demand existed. It built the port before the ships came. It built the airport before the airlines came. It built the financial center before the banks came. It built the head start before anyone knew what the race was. By the time neighboring countries understood what Singapore had done, it was a decade ahead. The gap has never closed. The UAE looked at that story and applied the same logic to artificial intelligence. Not in response to a crisis, not because the technology had already arrived and they needed to catch up before the wave, on purpose. The difference between Singapore in 1965 and the UAE in 2017 is that the UAE had the capital to move faster and the political structure to implement without the friction that slows democratic governments. The head start was not just earlier, it was deeper. In April 2024, Microsoft announced a $1.5 billion strategic investment in G42, the UAE's sovereign artificial intelligence company. Brad Smith, the president of Microsoft, joined G42's board of directors. That was not the full picture. By November 2025, Microsoft had committed $15.2 billion to the UAE, not raised in the UAE, spent in the UAE, on artificial intelligence infrastructure, data centers, and cloud capacity. $15.2 billion from one company in one country of 10 million people. Microsoft was also the first company to receive United States government export licenses to send advanced artificial intelligence chips to the UAE, including 60,400 A100 chips and NVIDIA's most advanced GPU processors. In 2020, the UAE opened the Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence in Masdar City, Abu Dhabi. It is the first university in the world dedicated entirely to artificial intelligence research and education. Full scholarships for every student. More than 100 faculty members recruited from China, the United States, Germany, and beyond. Students from 49 nations. The university has already produced JICE, the world's leading Arabic large language model. Then K2 Think, an open-source reasoning model with 32 billion parameters that outperforms models 20 times its size. Then Nanda, a Hindi language model built for India. Then Sherkala, a Kazakh language model built for Central Asia. A university that did not exist 6 years ago is producing artificial intelligence models in languages that Silicon Valley never bothered to build. And it is now producing models that compete with the output of Silicon Valley. The Stanford AI Index 2026 confirmed it. The UAE ranks among the world's leaders in AI adoption, AI government strategy, and AI infrastructure investment relative to population size. 70% working-age AI adoption in the second half of 2025, rising to 70.1% by the first quarter of 2026. Here is the dimension that almost no one outside the technology industry has connected yet. The United Arab Emirates is not just building artificial intelligence for itself. It is exporting artificial intelligence infrastructure to the rest of the world. In February 2026, G42 and the Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence announced a partnership with India to build an 8 exaflop artificial intelligence supercomputer, one of the most powerful in the world, on Indian soil. The United Arab Emirates is building India's artificial intelligence backbone. JICE, the Arabic language model, is being adopted across North Africa, the Middle East, and Central Asia. Countries that were previously dependent on English language artificial intelligence models built by American companies now have an alternative built in Abu Dhabi. The United Arab Emirates is becoming the artificial intelligence infrastructure provider for the Global South. This is the Belt and Road Initiative, but with software instead of concrete. China understood that infrastructure creates dependency. The UAE understood that AI infrastructure creates the same dependency at a fraction of the cost and with far greater speed. 10 million people. One deliberate strategy. A head start that is now becoming a structural advantage that compounds every year. They did not win the AI race. They started it 5 years before everyone else knew there was a race. The signal from the UAE is not in the technology. The technology came from elsewhere. The signal is in the sequencing. Strategy first. Infrastructure second. Adoption third. Export fourth. The UAE executed those 4 steps in exactly that order, and it executed the first step before anyone else had started. Countries watching this closely are now trying to replicate it. Saudi Arabia announced its national AI strategy in 2023. India is building sovereign AI capacity with UAE assistance. France opened a national AI lab in Paris in 2025. South Korea jumped 7 places in the global AI adoption rankings in the second half of 2025 alone. The companies watching this most closely are the ones that have already moved. Microsoft spent $15.2 billion. NVIDIA sent its most advanced chips. The United States government approved the export licenses. None of those decisions were made lightly. They were made because the people making them understood that the UAE had built something that will take a decade to replicate. The head start is the signal. The question every country and every company is now asking is, how far behind am I? If you want to keep seeing the next layer before it becomes obvious to everyone else, this is where that happens, every week. Before the mainstream catches up. 70%. That number did not appear because the United Arab Emirates got lucky. It did not appear because oil money made everything easy. It appeared because in 2017, 5 years before the rest of the world understood what was coming, one government made one decision. It appointed a minister for artificial intelligence. It built a strategy. It deployed it in public services before the public asked for it. It built a university before the field existed. It signed partnerships before the chips were available. It built the infrastructure before the demand arrived. It built the head start. Singapore did the same thing with finance and manufacturing in 1965. The gap it opened has never closed. The United Arab Emirates opened a similar gap in artificial intelligence in 2017. The gap is still widening. 70% is not a statistic. It is the result of a 9-year head start that is now compounding into something the rest of the world is only beginning to understand. The next layer was always there. Now you can see it.